Hi everyone. I would like to talk about the different signs that show that you are being spiritually abused or gaslit. This is such a common thing in the spiritual community. Unfortunately, there are so many people that are quick to tell you that everything you're experiencing is your own fault and try and blame you for everything. And there is something to be said for empowerment and, taking responsibility for your life and cause and effect. So like our past or parallel lives affecting us today and the decisions that we make in the past affecting us now. But that doesn't mean that people should be quick to blame people for everything that goes wrong in their life. And one of the most annoying forms of this is medical gaslighting, or people who blame you whenever you get sick. And they say, that it's all your own fault, and there's just no compassion there. And this sort of thing is not okay. And it's very low consciousness, and it's not very sophisticated way to connect the dots. I think because yes, you can have some control over what is happening to you now, but not always. Sometimes things are just about lessons that don't really have a karmic seeded origin. Like, for example, in Ekankar, it is taught that souls, when they first came down to the dualistic worlds for experiences, we didn't have any kind of karma because we never have come to these worlds of cause and effect yet. So in order to begin that journey, we were handed some seed karma, which was something that was given to us to start the process of going through different experiences. So this was something that was assigned. It wasn't something that we chose or that happened to us because of an action or a decision that we made in the beginning. We didn't do that. It was a origin point with a little bit of karma was sort of implanted into us or given to us to start our journey. So in the beginning, no, it was not our fault. And sometimes when people get sick, it's not so much that you're paying off some kind of karma of something that you did before, or you're just being neglectful of your health so you deserve to suffer or something like that. There was a famous healer named Hanna Kroeger. I will put a link about her. She passed away, but she was incredibly gifted and famous, and she had hands-on healing abilities. And what started her down her path of being a healer is that her daughter had a condition, and no doctor or no one was able to help with her child. And she didn't just accept that. She started doing research and started trying to figure out what she can do, and she unlocked some kind of healing abilities because of this trial that her daughter was going through. And the daughter, it's not like she was sick because she was a bad person before, but actually the daughter, who Hanna Kroeger was never able to heal, she was like the only person that Hanna Kroeger couldn't heal. She wrote in some of her books that some people, like her daughter, get illnesses because their purpose is to unlock other people's abilities. So the daughter could have volunteered to come in with the condition in order to start Hanna Kroeger on her journey of being a healer. So if the daughter hadn't have volunteered or been assigned with that role, all the people that Hanna Kroeger helped may never have gotten any help. So sometimes people are sick because they are helping someone, or all the lessons that are going to come from having an illness, and everyone else who's affected by it may have signed up for certain lessons. And so the sick person may actually be volunteering to help people to develop compassion and to not be so selfish and to learn to care for others. So you can't blame people like, oh, you were a bad person in another life because you're ill now. See, look, you're just paying off something. The people who try and shame other people for things that they go through or things that come up in their life, they have no clue what they're talking about. It is not always that way. That is too simplistic. So another thing that I've come across is actually from healers themselves, medically or spiritual healers. Some of them can do this, is that if they're treating someone and their client or patient has a bad reaction to the treatment, instead of being able to apologize and see what they may have done wrong, instead that they decide to blame their patient or not believe them or think that the patient didn't follow the instructions, just putting all of the blame on the other person. And in order to be a good healer, I really believe that you need to be able to examine everything you do and to learn from your patient. Like, that's one of the greatest ways to develop as a practitioner is feedback. And if you can't handle feedback and believe it and accept it, then you're in the wrong profession. So another sign of being spiritually gaslit or spiritual abuse is when practitioners or healers don't listen. They feel like because their patient doesn't listen to their suggestions, that the patient in fact enjoys being sick. I've literally heard this before. So, like if you have a practitioner and they just know that this one remedy will cure this one thing that the patient has, and they're insisting, you take it this way, I know for certain that this works, and the patient does not take the advice. And for some narcissistic healers that are actually in fact being abusive, they'll say, well, you're not following my advice because you like being ill. That's why you won't do what I'm telling you. And then they will get indignant and they'll feel like it's all everyone's own fault. They're sick because they're not listening to me or whatever. This is so irritating to me because actually everyone has divine wisdom inside of themselves, and I believe people know what's right for them, and also people have their lives, and you're not living that person's life. You don't know what that person is allergic to or can manage to fit into their schedule or anything. You don't know about people's past experiences. So that person listening to whatever is inside of themselves that's not accepting that advice at that moment could actually be saving them from a healing crisis or from being extremely ill from your recommendation that you may think is a great idea, but everyone is different. Not everyone's going to react the same way. So if someone says, no, that's not for me at this time, the most healing thing you can do is respect that and learn from it. Maybe you can ask more questions, or you can take note of the kind of personalities or energies that the people have that are not responsive to certain suggestions and learn from it. It could be that maybe this patient still needs something that they're getting from the condition at the moment, and that if your suggestion just stopped it in that moment, that lesson may go into other areas of their life and cause problems. So if someone is saying something not right for them in the moment, just believe them and drop it. So another sign of spiritual gaslighting is people who tell you that your life is messed up because you aren't positive enough. And they'll be shaming you for your experiences or for talking about negative things. I think those people don't need to be in the spiritual community if you're only wanting to focus on the positive. Like, you're missing we're in a dualistic world. The shadow has a lot of learning for us within it. If you take those experiences and those feelings and you process them in a healthy way, you can gain so much power from that. But if you don't process it, you're going to have problems, and you're going to not accept that you're having some kind of problem, and then you're going to push it off onto other people. So if anyone triggers something that you're trying to avoid, you're going to blame it on them, when really you're just not strong enough to process the negative aspects of life. Not everything is supposed to be positive and smiling all the time. That's just not realistic. And if other people are going through a difficult time, once they process that in this life or another, it's not for us to judge how long it takes people to process things. It will happen eventually, because we're all going in the direction towards the light. No matter how many lifetimes that takes. So judgment is not needed if someone is in a dark time in their life. If you can't be a support for someone at that time, just send them healing and acceptance. You don't have to be around it, but you really shouldn't be shaming people for having negative experiences, feeling negative things, voicing it. Some people do seem to focus on negative things when other people would be focusing on something positive, but that's their choice. And I really don't think it's right to shame people for something like that, because there are things happening on the other side that you cannot understand. We can't always understand what's happening, but jumping to judgment and shame is certainly the wrong action to take. Something else that really gets to me, I don't know if anyone else has experienced something like this, but this bothers me so bad. Like this other thing, which I think is gaslighting, it's when you share something about yourself or some belief you have or something that you're doing, and then someone criticizes it, and then the next week they're actually doing the same thing that you were doing and doing the thing that they were criticizing, and then they'll be doing it. What makes things even worse is they'll suggest it to you as if you weren't the one to introduce it to them in the first place. And if you tell them, remind them of that, they won't remember it. I don't know if that's some kind of like some people having disassociation about like just not remembering, or if that's narcissism, because narcissists do steal their whole personality from other people, and maybe they want to believe that they were the originator of things. But I just think that that's really creepy, and I don't like being around people like that, because you'll be like sharing with them, and then the next day they're doing your whole life and giving you advice of things that you taught them. I think it's just really weird. Like, I'm always conscious to acknowledge where I learned something, and if someone tells me about something and I think it's really cool, and then I start exploring it, and then I talk to them about it again, I'll be like, oh my god, like, thank you for telling me about this, because this was great and this worked for me. But acknowledge where it came from, and then just out of respect, I think that's like giving credit where credit is due, because it just feels bad when someone just snatches something that you told them about and act like they invented it or something. I don't know if that's gaslighting, but it's super annoying. And yeah, so I guess a lot of people, they use their ego as a band-aid to cover their trauma, and they just stay in denial. And these kind of people are super confident and think they have all the answers, and really they're just their child self, like a baby in pain, and they're trying to cover that up with, I guess, some people use spirituality, some people use different things, like taking advantage of people and monetarily, like business people. Or there's so many different areas. Like, some people are being disgusting in their relationships, and it's all just a big false self that people create to make them feel important and to control people. And if your intuition is telling you that someone is spiritually gaslighting you, if you think about the word con man, con is standing for confidence, someone who is extremely confident about something, and it kind of like is a bit blinding. It takes you by surprise. It's like, wow, this person knows, like, they know what they're talking about. They are super energetic and serious, and they seem like they have all the answers. I think you should always be skeptical if you come across people behaving that way, because no one has all the answers, because if we did, we wouldn't be here anymore. And certainly no one has all the answers for someone else, because healers and guides are there to guide you towards the path that is set before you. And the only person that really knows what that is yourself and your higher self and your spiritual team, which is not of this world. And anything outside of that can be helpful and can help connect you more with your higher self. And that is what is most important and should hold the most weight. don't get swept up and carried away by people who think they know everything, and people who get angry if you don't do what they say, and people who try and shame you if you go through a difficult time and tell you that you're not really spiritual. If you mention something that is true and negative and you think about that sometimes and it affects you, you're still spiritual. The controllers around us are just doing too much. So that's why I wanted to make this. The controllers, people who want to control other people, and things on the other side that are using people to make people feel bad about themselves and then feed off of that energy that comes out of them when they are in that state of being shamed and used in a deceitful way. And during the Kali Yuga, the age that we are in, these kinds of people will be in the majority. So be careful who you accept as your teacher. And also be careful with just chasing good feelings, because these lost people may initially blind you with, this feels so great and we are on a spiritual cloud. But just because something feels like it makes you feel high, that doesn't mean that it's really what your spiritual unfoldment needs to get you back to home, the ocean of love and mercy, back home to God or spirit or goddess. So don't just chase feelings. Sometimes the deep work is painful, but it is your journey. No one has more knowledge of your journey than you. No one knows what is right for you like you do. And disillusionment can take us over and make us feel like something is for us when maybe it may be a bit unhealthy, but eventually we figure it out. It may take some time, but we know. Sometimes we just don't listen to our higher self, but we know. Sometimes it's scary to listen to our higher self, so we rather just believe this confident con man or this spiritually wrecked egomaniac trying to control you. That's kind of an easy way out. Sometimes following our higher self is scary because it's going off into new uncharted territory, and that can be scary. So yeah, it can be easier just to listen to someone who seems to have all the answers, but it's braver to listen to yourself sometimes. And you know when it's time to make a change because it happens, it begins to unfold. And until that happens, you don't have to beat yourself up. And you don't have to accept other people's judgments of you for not doing what they think you should be doing in that moment. When it's time, it's time. And I think that'll make sense to the right people who need to hear that. Thanks for listening. Bye.